Hey, what's up? I'm Michelle B. This is Channel Notes, and this video is all about the exposure triangle. So when I first bought my DSLR camera, I was so freaking pumped. I literally thought it was like my key to the kingdom. I was like, yep, I've got my DSLR camera, like I am in. I am a YouTuber, right? Wrong, incorrect, false. I actually switched my camera to record with the Australian sunshine just like pouring in the window and produced a video that literally looked like it had been filmed off a really old phone at night. So today I want to help you avoid that with the exposure triangle. So as like an obvious amateur, I'm going to go ahead and try and explain the exposure triangle in the most simplified way possible, because honestly if you get too deep into it can get like really messy and technical and you just like your brain wants to shut down. Filmmakers, photographers, do not judge me. So exposure is obviously the light that your camera is exposed to when filming. You can have like an awesome camera, an awesome lens, but if you don't know how to control the lighting, your videos aren't going to look that good. And that is why having the complete control over your camera's exposure to light is like so fabulous when you actually know how to use it. So the exposure triangle is made up of ISO, aperture, and shutter speed. Three things you've probably heard about before but like didn't want to delve into if you're anything like me or me a year ago. So I'll start with explaining what ISO is because I think it's the most easy one to like wrap your head around. So that ISO number on your camera represents how sensitive your camera is to light. So the higher it is, the more sensitive your camera is. The catch is that the more sensitive you make your camera to light, so the higher your ISO is, the more grainy your videos are going to look. So really quickly, I'm going to make my ISO really high so that you can see a comparison. So right now my camera has an ISO of 6400, which is like extremely high, and I would never ever actively film with an ISO that high. So you might not be able to see it that well from afar, but if you actually zoom in on my face, you can see like how pixelated it is compared to an ISO of say 200. In general, you want to keep your ISO down to the lowest possible limit, depending on your light situation obviously. So I film indoors with like pretty good natural lighting as well as artificial lighting, and I keep my ISO at 200, sometimes 100. Keep in mind that you will have to compensate for a low ISO with a higher aperture and a higher shutter speed. So, aperture. Aperture is how much light you are actually letting into your lens. And it is all about the depth of field. So if what you want is like a super blurry background, high depth of field, then you need to take control of your aperture. Alright, so aperture is measured in f-stops, so it'll be like f1.4, f5.6, those kind of numbers. It gets kind of confusing because you would think that the higher the number, the more light you're letting in, but no, it's the higher the number, the less light you're letting in. So if you want like a super blurry background, so I want these guys to be like really blurred, you want a really low aperture. Kind of like this. I already actually had a pretty low aperture, but you can see these should be a little bit more blurry now that I have made my aperture the lowest that it can go. You can probably see it like more around here-ish. And to keep everything in your frame more crisp and even across the board, you would want a high aperture, which means less light is let into your camera, which means that you have a lower depth of field. Like this, so now you can see these are like relatively in focus. I couldn't put my aperture to too high because otherwise it would be like incredibly dark, but you can see these are a lot crisper than before. Keeping in mind that when your aperture is lower, everything is darker, so you do need to up things like your ISO or your shutter speed to compensate. Now for the third point of the triangle, so shutter speed. So your shutter speed is displayed like this on your camera, and basically it's a fraction of a second. So if it's like 1/60th of a second, obviously your shutter will be opened a little bit longer and it'll capture any like movement or motion blur. So if I'm like moving around like this, you'll be able to see it really easy. So the lower your shutter speed, the lighter your screen will be, and the higher your shutter speed, the darker your screen will be. So now I have changed my shutter speed to be 1/200th of a second, and if I whip my hair, my hair movement is slightly crisper and you get less of that like motion blur. So basically the lower your shutter speed number, the more light will be let into your camera and the more motion blur your camera will pick up. The higher your shutter speed number, the less light will be let into your camera and the crisper your motions will be. So for instance, if you were filming sports, you would obviously have like a super high shutter speed because you want to capture all the movements. So now you should have a good overview of ISO, aperture, and shutter speed and how these sort of manipulate your camera's lighting. So to get your lighting to the level that you want it to be, you need a good balance of like artificial lighting or natural lighting, whatever you have going on, as well as manipulation of the exposure triangle. It made such a difference to me when I found out about it. I literally just left it for so long. I was just like, oh, okay, I guess my DSLR camera isn't that good after all. Didn't think to look up, you know, how to use the manual settings on your DSLR camera that's made to be used in manual. I will probably make an individual video on all 3 of these functions. I feel like I say that in every single video. There's just so much to talk about on this channel. And I will go a little bit more in depth into all 3 of them, but hopefully this video has given you like a really good overview. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to my channel for more videos on doing YouTube. If you want to, follow me on social media and everything. It's all linked down below, and I will see you soon. I wear my hair back and forth, I wear my hair